Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to do a 5x7 folded dark blue matte cardstock card. I haven't done one of these in a while. I really enjoy doing the folded card type of idea for either an interior splash page spread or just a front card, back and front type of format. So, and we'll see it as 3 cards in some ways, because we'll make a scene that can read front only, back only. We want them to be fairly interesting just on their own and to stand as a independent composition, but when folded out like that, will read as one complete, hopefully, fairly dramatic scene when we're talking about, a card of this size right here. So it'd be 10x7. Okay, so I thought I would do this mostly with the newer imagery from the last set release, but I think we'll utilize either this slope in here from an existing set, or maybe the Snowy Creek or something like that, just to kind of set a little bit more of a foundation for the other imagery to come. I really like this little creek here. Okay, so one of the things that I was trying to figure out is if I would lay down a little bit of tone on this paper with some white pigment before stamping it out. But I think I'm just going to stamp it out and just go from there. We'll add in our lighting and our volumes into the piece post impressions. Hello, Linda. How are you? Okay, let's give this a shot here, Linda. Let's see how this goes. If anyone else is on, happy to see you. Hope everyone is having a great holiday season. If you celebrate Christmas, hope you had a great Christmas yesterday. I think I can use either the Brilliance Black or maybe my hybrid black ink for these. You can use whatever you want. If you have a really like a VersaFine Clear, that would be really good on this paper. It's a really dark paper, so you really want to try to get as dark of an impression as you can on here. I mean, like a Memories Black would be good as far as a dye-based black ink, but there's some black inks out there. Hello, Sharita. There's some black inks out there that are a little bit anemic, okay? Like Memento specifically. I find their tones, and I really love them for this characteristic in certain types of applications, but I find that most of them are a little bit lighter in value than the equivalent in other brands. But that being said, they're really great for blending and spreading around on something like just a plain cardstock. So they're really good for that. But as far as like impressions go on darker papers, go for something as dark as you can if you're utilizing black tones. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this paper was really fantastic here. I got mine at Kelly Paper, and this was their clearance prices. So you get 25 5x7 80-pound cover weight pieces in here, and that was $4.50 back in the day. Nowadays, their clearance prices, this is years ago, even like 2 or 3 years ago, I think the clearance price when I went to go see it, it seemed like the clearance prices were more than the full price from just a few years, or I don't know, even a couple years previous. Just the cost of papers went up so much All right. So we got a decent little impression right there. And like I said, if it comes out like a lot lighter than that, it would be kind of hard to see on this dark of a paper. So go as dark as you can. And, you know, if you want to be safe and you're not sure, I mean, you can always do something on, you know, an equivalent darkness of paper, or just go with a thicker ink. So your hybrid inks, your pigment inks would be a good choice for that. Okay, let me see. Do I need anything over on the side? I can use this one too. Out here, like that. Do I need another foundation? Is the question. I think I'm going to go without that. I think I'll just use this Snowy Creek as a foundation. And I'm going to have like other trees and things over here. And we'll put a cabin right back in here. Now these are going to be like the opposite. It'll be facing the other way. But we can kind of get the gist of our composition by repeating some imagery in here. And, you know, I can go for another little cabin back here, kind of in the distance, like that. This one would be going like that. So this would be good because this cabin's kind of facing this way. And if I use this one in the distance, it's facing that way. So you have this kind of look. But I think in terms of compositions, this one would look pretty cool. Maybe we'll go center like that, or a little bit off center. Like that. I can put some trees right here where this looks like its own independent composition. And this one over here will create kind of a little corridor, I think, for that little sledder guy coming up this way. And that'll look as a composition. So I'm designing for 1, 2, and then 3 compositions, you know. And that's what's fun about the front and back type of narrative. Or, you know, this could be a pretty cool interior spread too. You can put your greeting on the outside and you can open it up into a big scene like this as well. And that could be like the big kind of reveal too. So, kind of a sequential type of narrative going on here. So I always recommend that to people. Play around with multiple panel projects, you know, that are meant to be seen individually in sequence. You know, you can have them related somehow. Narratively, there'd be a storyline to it or something like that. It can represent different seasons, time, whatever, times of day, or something of that sort. But yeah, I don't know. It's really fun stuff. Rather, you know, if you kind of are looking for something just to kind of expand outside of the single visual type of situation. All right, so that goes there. I don't think I need to worry about sequencing too much on this one. In terms of my image placement here. When doing the those metallic papers, it's like, okay, what should go on next, you know? But this is just like your regular cardstock, so I don't think it's not coated either, so just your bare matte cover stock cardstock. Hello, G3719. Again, that was Bonnie, right? I have a bad memory, so I have to see people with their coded names for a little while before it sinks into my, you know, before it sinks into my cranium. My limited, storage brain here. All right, that's in the background right there. We'll add in some other smaller pieces in here. So here's the thing. Say I want this like a larger tree in here too, so that this will read this way as well. So if I have something kind of flanking both sides like that, it tends to look good. But you don't want it kind of, here's my big thing is, I don't want it, when it's opened up, you don't want something just like right dead center like this. It looks awkward. So it has to be a little bit kind of off center a little bit. So it's kind of putting that center framing piece in the right spot. Maybe the answer is just go with a little bit of a smaller one in here. But I want to do that. I wanted to do this this new set because I wanted to really put some highlighting of the snow on these branches here, which I thought would look pretty cool with the dark blue paper. All right. So if anyone just joined in, this is one of those pre-folded cards that I'm working on. Of course, it doesn't have to be pre-folded. You can do a folded card, but just, you know, stamp out the scene and just fold it later if you're going to have it as a folded piece. Okay, let's get this one nice and whatever, ink transferred. Because it's a foreground element, and we usually want the foreground elements to be nice and dark. Like that. The hybrid ink's working pretty good. I don't feel I need to hold down for too long. I'm taking I keep mentioning it. I'm going to pick up that. There's a bunch of like re-inkers that I've needed to get for like a year. Or even more. So I'll pick up a VersaFine Claire sometime. And I wanted to go through and look at some other colors that I needed from Tsukaneko. The Distress ink, not VersaFine, but the Distress antique linen. I was thinking old paper or antique linen. It's antique linen was my favorite, one of my favorite light toned base coat colors. I need to get a couple of re-inkers for that. All right, a tree like that, and then let's go shorter like this, and then I'll put another tree off to the side that's a little bit smaller, going off into the distance here. Which way do I want to go? Do I want to... There's more open space here because I have the creek here, so I'll put this one over this way a little bit, so it's a little bit left of center. Like that, about a half inch or so. Okay. That's one of my favorite colors too, Bonnie. The one thing that's really fun about this type of technique on these darker cardstocks like this, whatever color it is, if you like that color, and then when you start adding the white in different opacities, then you get different versions of that color in a range of values, starting off at that tone down to white. And then of course you can add in shadow work in there, which makes it look like a little bit more of a muted, darker version as well. Okay, see that pre-folded card, so that didn't stamp in that little space in there. But, that's just part of the whole thing about stamping on the pre-folded card. You're going to be dealing with that little ridge in there. All right, let's go with a smaller version like that. Okay, so this is what this is looking like this. So it's looking like something's kind of missing out here. And see, this one looks fine in terms of the framing on this, but we'll add in like another tree right in here. And we'll have it, I don't know if I want to have it go in there actually. Let's go off here. Well, I'll have it go in there just a tiny bit. So, I mean, it's not, and this is like a crucial thing, but it's one of those little things that you can kind of think about a little bit if you're doing one of these pieces, and if this is indeed the outside of the card as opposed to the interior. If it's the interior, you don't have to worry about it at all. But on this one, when people look at your card at first, this will be a little bit more of like a framed off piece, and they'll realize, oh wait, oh, here's another, here's the scene right here, and they'll look like that. Okay, so see that right there? That and that right there kind of creates this little thing. You're going up there like that visually. Okay, I only have a little bit of this piece right in here, and then this right here, of course, is framed off nicely, but we'll need to put other things in here, but that's kind of the framework right there. So pretty easy to do. And let's see, let's keep the viewer's eye kind of going back into these spaces with increasingly smaller whatever reference points, I guess. Trees, larger, medium, smaller, or larger, smaller, smaller, like that. This will be a snowy terrain in this one. It doesn't have to be. If we stamp this on a white piece of paper, I can make all of this, green or whatever. I thought about putting one right here, but let's keep the silhouette of these forms a little bit more intact. I won't put it, I won't cluster too many trees, but let's do like smaller versions of the tree here. So we'll just mask off like this, and then do these background ones like they're behind like a little bank of snow or something. That. And we'll do that. So it creates a little bank like that. And then what we'll do is we'll use the same snow slope template here. Custom sloping template. Go like that, and we'll go over here. Let's go a little bit taller. That. I keep getting ink on my finger there and smudging. Something like that. Let's put some intermediate ones in here too. So just using the same tree, but just using different heights of it. And we'll go, let's see, let's do this. See, here's one of those little things right here. This is all kind of sloping down this way. But for this purpose over here, let's go, see if you go up a little bit like this, like that, you're keeping kind of this little slope in here, so it's not just all going out that way by having nothing but here. So you're putting this a little bit of height up here, so it's a little like a little bowl. So it's bringing the viewer's attention back in here rather than just kind of like sloping off. You know, if it was like a interior decorating or something like that, they might call it like feng shui or whatever. But keep the viewers there, you know, attention kind of going on, you know, into the interior or wherever you want the viewer to be looking. You know, just direct it through whatever images and angles and framing, stuff like that. You can all, you know, I mean, you could have darkened it up over here too. It doesn't have to be a tree, but that's just one of those things that you can do. Okay, so in here, I think I'll put some kind of word stamp. I was thinking about using one of those word stamps. And then over here, I thought about doing my light source. I don't know. I tend to like doing that, it seems, because I do that frequently. I'll put my light source in the opposite side of the front card. Okay, so getting our bearings like this. And if I put my light source in right now, then it'll be a lot easier to determine like the shading across the landscape after we establish that, especially on a dark piece of paper like this. So let's do that right now. I'll just go with my 1-inch hole punch right here and we'll throw it. Let's go about right here maybe. And white pigment ink. In my mind, I'm thinking, how light do I want to make this moon? Because how light I make the moon, then I usually have the reflective light on the landscape kind of adjusted accordingly. So if this is like really white down there, I'm going to have to put probably more white on the snow for it to look kind of a little bit more natural. If it's more dimly lit, sometimes it's a little bit more moody looking. So I don't know, it's just like whatever you want to do, or whatever kind of emotional what kind of emotional content do you want to kind of create in your piece? And you can always make it a certain, whatever, lightness, darkness, whatever. And then if you want to, you can always go back and it's like, oh, that doesn't look right. Then just add more white to it, you know. But if you go really super white, you know, it's kind of harder to, a little bit more, you know, difficult to tone it down. But you can, though. You can go over it with like a colored pencil and just, you know, darken it or something like that if you make it too dark. We're going from a little bit more ink up top and less down below, just so we have a transitioning moon for a little bit more variation like that. And again, kind of mood, I guess. Like that. All right. And, all right, do I add in the white first or do I add in the shadow? That's the question. And I think it could be either. But it's like, which one do you want to do? I don't do this enough to kind of have that answer kind of just inherently in my little brain here. So I think I want to go in with the pigment, with the charcoal pencil here, but it's kind of harder to add this. I keep saying this, but it's kind of harder to add like acrylic paint over the top of, you know, dusty, loose, not charcoal, but pastel. So in theory, I should go in with the the acrylic paint pen first, but it's going to stand out so much because it's, you know, it's white, and it'll apply to it. It'll transfer onto this paper so fast because it's absorbent too. So I also pulled out my blue acrylic paint pen too. All right, well, let's play around. We'll see how this comes out here. Yeah. All right. I'll just start off with a little bit of this blue first because it's darker than white. So and you can see just how much it stands out. It really stands out in here. Maybe it stands out too much. I might be going with the pastel pencil. That sounds like way too much here. Let's go with the pastel pencil because I can get variations of tone with this one. So I'm adding this on some of these exposed branches on the trees. Well, not exposed, but the lighter patchy areas within the trees like that. That's what I'm doing back in here. See, it's like way too light here, so we got to tone it down a little bit. It also doesn't make sense in here too because it's the only things that have this kind of reflective light. This whole area down in here is going to be much lighter too when we get to that, but you have to kind of add this around, like on this rooftop right here. You have to add this down in order for these little highlights to make sense. Otherwise, it's kind of this isolated application of lightness, which looks kind of weird until it's consistently applied to everything that's going to be kind of in that spirit there. So if you do this, just be prepared for kind of a visual awkwardness. until you get, you know, through a lot of the surfaces here. One of the good things about the pastel pencil too is you can kind of blend it around a little bit, and you can take an eraser or paper towel and just kind of blend a lot of that, the applications in, and remove accordingly if need be. Oh, yeah. I want to add that little slider down here too, so I should do that before I add this in. All right. By the time I start getting over to this side of the card, my imagery is getting farther away from the light source, so I might do a little bit less of this highlighting or lighting. Let's say on this tree over here than the trees over here. I'll try to blend that in a little bit, like so. And same thing right here. Maybe I'll go a little bit more right side illuminated, although it's like coming from above, but just to kind of balance out that side over there where it's darker on that half of the tree. Do something like that. And let's see this roof line like so. And let's get those, get that little letter stamped out right here. Let's see, where would he go? He'd go down about like so, or something like this right here, I think. See, if I have him up here, then he's like really gigantic looking, so it needs to be down here because it's like a little kid, I think. Right there, maybe. Let's get that figure stamped out. Every time I stamp this little letter here, these little kids coming back at night, it always takes me back to growing up, and makes me think of coming back like after dark, like in the summertime at least, as a little kid, when we used to go out exploring with the gang, all the other kids on the street. But you know, it was perfectly fine to do that in those days, at least where I grew up, you know, without parents kind of worrying about us, or really needing to worry. All right, little footsteps coming back this way. Or not, no, I look at this, when I look at this over here, if I put this guy out on this side, I put him probably right here. So, I don't know. Not that it matters too much. There's like a couple of the snowmen too. Let's leave it open right there. Before I do this too, I want to get a little bit more texture, which I'm always doing with my Tiny Rock Small stamp here. Hello, Cynthia, how are you? Sherry, good to see you. Greetings. Are you getting any of that? Yeah, we did get the rain. Some of it, well, a decent amount. The where we are in San Diego, though, it rained more like north of here, like Los Angeles County. And, you know, the counties above there, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and all that. I would be surprised if we even got like 1.5 inches, or even an inch. I'd be surprised if we even got 1 inch of rain here. But there's more expected tonight. And then again, a little bit, let's see, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I think, of this next week. Okay, so a little bit of texturing in there. It's just to give myself a little bit of a head start on shading in here. Now, the highlighting doesn't look good at all right now, but this is just like the first layer of it in here. When I should pull out one of my, what they call stomps, these little paper type of blending tools. It's like this little paper that has this little tip on it that you blend, typically things like charcoals and chalks and things like that, into that background. But I'll just use a little bit of my paper towel here. Now, if we're going for a little bit more of a, you know, kind of a, I don't know, like an expressionistic, gestural, not expressionistic, but gestural application of this pastel on here, which really looks great with people that are doing pastel work. You know, you see the texturing of the paper and everything like that. Then you just leave it as is. But I want this one to be a little bit more blended at this point in time. Maybe I'll put in a little bit more gestural applications of it. But I want this to be blended in a little bit more and mellow. So I'm just taking this and just kind of, I'm removing some of it, but it's also, I'm just kind of spreading this around into the grain of the paper right now. like that. And that kind of gives me a little bit more of the gist of the lighting in this piece here. This is a really big area to be applying that pastel, so I'm wondering if I want to just do a little bit of white pigmenting first, or should we just try the pastel here? Okay, so if I have to do this right here, I'll do it in stages. I'll add some in right here, and then I'll have a little bit of darkness, and then I'll go in with a little bit more lighting like that, I think. It's just to vary this, because this is a big open area, and we don't want it all the same kind of texture and lighting. So, yeah, let me go with the side of this right here. Yeah, the extremes, huh? It's always like, how many times have we heard it in the last few years? Kind of record, you always hear the record breaking, you know, whatever. It's just so much extremes of weather. It's like really unpredictable. I mean, for so many years, it was just so predictable, you know. I mean, there might be a few year, you know, a few times here and there when it would be, you know, something a little bit out of the ordinary, or we got it in California, it would be drought for sure, but it's just so much extremes now. Extreme, I don't know if we had extreme drought, but we had some like extreme rainfall at times, which in the past, after drought years, we were kind of happy for, of course. But, you know, coupled with, you know, like wildfires and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just like so much damage happening. All right, so we're getting this kind of laid down. You can see where I'm leaving some areas just as is. So in my mind, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, what did I do to blend this in? Well, it's because I haven't gotten to the dark tones yet. So things like this black colored pencil should kind of handle a lot of the blending. And there's a certain charm to that too, but you know, kind of that rougher kind of, like I said, a little bit more of a textural kind of application of the pastel pencil like that. But you know, on this piece at this time, not what I'm going for. Okay, so trying to blend this in a little bit, about like so. Let me see, I can't even see what I'm getting at. Right here's another slope right here. On that side right there. Okay. How about everyone else? Is anyone else getting kind of extremes of weather this fall, winter? Hello, Marta. How are you? Okay, snowy Maine. Yeah, yeah. How's the weather you've been having, Marta? Every time I think of Maine and the winter time, I think about my customers there telling me about, you know, pretty much standard Maine fare, at least around where they lived. But when I was out there teaching years ago, you know, I don't know, they were talking about, some customers were talking amongst themselves. Oh, did you get that blackout whenever it was, you know, a few months ago? And it was like not uncommon to have like no power for like, like a few days at times. And they're like, yeah, it happens. It's like, not that I did, but it was like, okay, don't complain about like weather like at all. Living in Southern California. Okay, we're going with our black now, and I'm going to try to direct my lighting in here based on that light source. So we'll be kind of adding our shadow work, at the different angles based on the location of the light source on the terrain right here. Now this terrain right here, it's not illuminated the way that it will be in the end, but this is just kind of a foundation right here. It's like a base layer of lighting just to kind of get the gist of whatever the lighting scheme in here. So right here, my first kind of shadow down here. Let me see if I have it going in the right direction roughly. It's like that. Okay. So I'm adding a little bit more at the base of the tree, and then as I move out, you kind of dissipate it a little bit like that. So a little bit darker to lighter like that. This, your angles get a little bit more extreme the more horizontal they get. So like these trees out here. See this one right here? Sort of like this. Sometimes it's good to get a little straight edge so you can kind of get your bearings, and you can see kind of, the direction of that shadow. So here it's like here, this little guy. Artistic license here. See, we have our little footprints in the snow, so I don't want to put too much shadow work down here because then I can't see the footprints right there. So anyways, you can kind of see those little shadows. Okay, right at the base of this one right here. We were in t-shirts and flip-flops for Christmas. Yeah. Out here yesterday it was pretty sunny and warm. Where the day before it was like stormy. But it was a really nice day here yesterday. It's supposed to be raining again. Actually, like right now, what is it? 4:42. I think it might be sprinkling outside a little bit. Flooding and landslides in Oregon. Oh, near mountains and rivers. The rescue. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what my sister was saying up in her area. So she lives in Seattle. So yeah, that area up in there, Pacific Northwest, huh, in general. I wonder if the storms that we're getting, whatever this, what do they call it? What do they call it? Oh, it was something stream. I wonder if it's that same system making its way down south. So I've been watching this weather because I want to get out to like I don't know, one of the local deserts or something like that, Joshua Tree maybe, to do a little bit of hiking. So I've been watching that. And it looks like I'll have a window of a few days, starting tomorrow. I think tomorrow through Tuesday is going to be, fine to get out. Maybe even Wednesday, I'm not sure. Okay, so adding in some, well, crisp little shadows on the edge, the water's edge right in here. So everything was looking really kind of I don't know, maybe like sloppy when I add in a lot of like super soft applications of lighting, okay? Now we're gonna go in and we're gonna add in our crisp applications too with our, with our paint pens in here. But we're getting that kind of that vague, you know, highlights established in here. Now I'm going in with my crispness, and then we go back to, soft again. So we're playing around with the hopefully different textural elements, applications, I guess, in here to hopefully bring it together a little bit more. Like I said, I haven't done these in a while. I usually like it like in the last like couple steps, usually when I like add a little bit more kind of atmospheric fog or something like that, it kind of brings it all together. But it's one of those things that's like, if I haven't done this for a while, it's like I'm kind of wondering if it's going to come out. During a live stream, of course, It was almost 80 degrees here. Wow, I've never been above me, so only a south. 80 degrees. I don't know what it was here yesterday. Yeah, here it was probably mid-70s or something like that. But nice and sunny, and it was nice and bright, too. I love it. I love the air after like a storm goes through because it's so kind of crisp and clean, The lighting is just different. It's just so clear, with all that kind of moisture and sediment in the air kind of blown out. All right, white really kind of standing out in there, so I'll need to go in there, apply it, and then I'll blend it in again. Okay, and yeah, that white is really, really contrasty. I used to think it was really kind of cool to all these houses that are kind of like out in I don't know, around in California. It'd be like amongst the chaparral and stuff like that. Surrounded by open area. But these days, it's like if you can even get like insurance, it'd be the California Fair Plan. But it's like, would you even want to be in those areas, like in that fire out in Pacific Palisades? You got this area called Altadena, and we used to go hiking there because there's this trailhead there, a really popular one. It's kind of above Pasadena, and that area just got wiped out, like, I don't know, like a mile from the trailhead, from that open kind of hillside area. It's like that whole entire neighborhood got just wiped out with those Santa Ana winds blowing at those that fire. I didn't hike. I haven't been hiking out there in like 20 years, but since I moved from LA. But yeah, it's such a shock. All right, so adding in those highlights back into these areas, you can see how kind of light it's going to get eventually. But I'm going with kind of dots just to be a little bit more conservative in terms of my application of lighting. And then we'll just get increasingly lighter the more whatever bold we get with those applications of white or white and opacity in here. Okay. All right. So like that. And then I'm going to splatter paint this with like snowfall in here too. So hopefully it gives it kind of a nice unifying texture over the whole thing too. So we'll see. Oh, did you get a new laptop, Marta? Yeah, the different keyboards certainly make a difference. Keyboards and new mouse, you know. I've had I think it was I'm using a different keyboard for my my other computer, my iMac, whatever. Wireless keyboard went out a little while ago, so I just bought a wired one. One that I wouldn't have to keep charging up, you know, like batteries with. But yeah, I think the like the command button is in a different space or something like that. So it's like I've probably had it for, I don't know, like 6 months or something like that now, but I'm still not used to it. After using a kind of a certain configuration for so many years. Yeah, all right. Adding that little bit of sloping kind of highlighting right there. Looks like little crawling little lights, huh? So those little pastel applications are kind of guiding me a little bit, but then as I add some of this down here, that'll inform me how much pastel to put over the top of this again. So let's give this a little bit of a glistening kind of snow look in here. Stippling, you kind of go, well, we're working in reverse, so but anytime you want like a heavier concentration of it to be, in this case, lighter, and then what you do is you put more space in between the dots like that, you know, just to kind of dissipate it. It's the opposite when you're doing shading. Of course, you condense the dots a little bit more, so this will be a little bit lighter up here and then darker down below. And then if you want to do that again, let's say around this little figure down here, and go like that. So say it's kind of creating these little ridges, and you're oscillating light and dark, what I'm always kind of mentioning, you know, that oscillation of tone in your pieces. In other words, it's just not all the, you know, uniform lightness right in here. Okay, you go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, like that. Okay, so same thing over here. Let's continue this lightness right here in back of this tree, and we'll come over here, like about like this. Like that, so it's kind of like that lighting, and then, oh, and I'll continue that down that way maybe, okay? Now, I wasn't thinking about this when I added that on. I'm just kind of looking at this and kind of letting the piece kind of guide me in some way. So this here is the same kind of area of light going, you know, from right over here, right to right in here. All right, now, and then let's do the same thing up on these other kind of ridges in here. Yeah, yeah. Sharita, have you tried out the, you know, the darker kind of papers before, doing, you know, variations of lighting on them? So here's the thing, you know, usually, for the most part, I think most of the time in card making or stamping or whatever, artwork in general, we're usually taking a white piece of paper, white canvas, whatever, and we're applying darker tones on the top of it. Now, if we're doing oil paint or something like that, you can go back into it and add light, but it's a really good exercise here of applying. When we're doing these things, we're stamping things out and we're adding some shadows down, certainly. But for the most part, it's kind of like it's like training the eye to see light. Because we're usually like adding, like I said, positive things. So when you stamp like a reverse stamp and, word stamp, they call it a reverse word stamp where you do light into dark, But whenever I do one of these pieces like this, where we're doing, working on a dark surface material with, pretty much lighter tones and media, I found that it kind of heightens the awareness of lighting and that whole kind of whatever yin yang of light and dark when we go back in and we do our, positive applications on light paper. You're going to be more sensitized to seeing the lighting where, if you're only doing that, it's like you get more in tune with darker applications on something. You're adding in, dye base inks or Copic marker, alcohol markers or something like that. Things are just getting darker and darker and darker as we add in those applications of that type of media. But you come off of something like this and, you're seeing the light. It doesn't take too many either, if you did if you haven't done this before and you did like 2 of them, it would really kind of be a nice kind of exercise of that whole range of values, light into dark, like that. So anyways, it's starting to come together a little bit more. We're adding these in here like that. Let me see. So transition this a little bit. Like so. I mean, it's still kind of crawling with little, dots like this, but hopefully we'll, that splatter painting snowfall in here will kind of even it all out. And then the additional white pigment ink and pastel work in here. I don't know, at least that's the way it kind of worked out in the past. I think when I'm doing these, now that I think about it, there's usually kind of more solid objects. I'll use like tree trunks in here, tree trunk trio. So there's not like so much kind of open space that I'm filling in with lighting, because having those big, huge dark forms in here, the Art Foamy's tree trunks or something like that, it's like this big and you can knock off like, 10% of the scene just with that one image. So I don't have to do so much of like this type of thing. This is fun though. You do see the things kind of developing, albeit a little bit more slowly and incrementally, with each dot here. All right. Something like that. You can see what it looks like. Oh, there's a little bit more glare on the paper like that. See how much contrast there is like that. So it's kind of starting to come out a little bit now. So I think I can come back in with my trees again and add in a little bit more detailing where before, when there was none, no other lighting in here, this really kind of stood out, looking kind of awkward. But now it kind of makes sense from a lighting standpoint. having all those little dots on the tree, you know, like that. You don't want to do stippling. You can kind of color it in too. It'd be just a kind of a bolder, lighter area of snow on the limbs. So I wanted there to be some snowfall in the mountains and the higher elevations in Southern California with this latest storm, but it was just too warm for that. So even up at like 7,000 feet, there's this trail live cam. It must be about 7,500 feet up on this place called the Palm Springs Tramway. They have a ranger station up there, and there's a live cam in this place called Long Valley. And I was watching that, but even at nighttime during this latest storm, it was just all rain. I don't. It might have got a tiny bit of snow, but not much. All right, so adding in that snowfall to those tree limbs like that, which is kind of the point of doing the new sets here. I wanted to add in snow on some branches and see what that looked like on blue cardstock. About like that. Your friend's husband got sunburned. Oh my gosh. So he was out there in that 80 degrees, and he was out there for too long. He was probably thinking, it's winter time, even though it's kind of warm and sunny. I don't know. He didn't need the screen or whatever, sun protection. Yeah, yeah, muscle memory. If there's going to be muscle memory with anything, it's going to be like typing, isn't it? For sure. All right, let's add on a little bit of this highlighting on these roofs like this. Not that any of my videos or live streams are like really dynamic in terms of the process here, but I don't know. Me sitting here adding like 3,000 little dots onto a card, a little bit extreme here. But it's a thing that's kind of bringing everything together, I think. Like that. All right, let's get into some little details on here. Some of these like really fine details within the form in here. It's hard to see with this black on dark blue paper here, but you can kind of go around and do a little scumbling like right in here. There's like these little forms right in here, and if you can't see anything, then you just kind of make it up. These cabins right here, I don't have them kind of inherently night based, you know, where it's kind of lighter inside and darker outside. So I don't know, I might leave them in the dark like that. I could put kind of lighting in there, but I don't know. I can barely see it here, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. But on those like posts like that, I think that kind of looks a little bit decent to just to give a little bit of dimension to this whole area. Otherwise, the whole thing's like in darkness. Like that on that porch area. Yeah, just like that. You know, I don't know. Whether or not I was kind of staying on some line, I have no idea. I can kind of see it, but not much. All right, let's see. This little guy right here is kind of getting a little bit blended into the background. Like, do a little highlighting on that sled, like that. I'll put a little bit of highlighting on his little head like that. All right, so let's try to get this blended in a little bit more, and let's see how this goes. So there's not very much variation in here right now. It's just being created by those little dots in there. So like on the top sides of it, like here's like a really good example. So I'll go into this a little bit more, and then I'll just kind of reiterate that idea in pastel form like that. So it's a little bit lighter up top, and then it transitions into a darker little area down below like that. And we'll just do that in these different areas, and we'll see how far we can, or how far we can or should take those. I don't know, what do we call them? Transitions like that. So see something like that. And if you, like I said, if you add in too much, you just kind of wipe it off, because this pastel is just kind of floating on the surface like that. I'll need to spray seal it when I'm done. But you can totally manipulate it, at this point in time. You can even take an eraser and probably erase the entire thing, especially if you have a kneadable eraser. So some of these are just like a little tiny strip of dots, so I can just almost do like a little line there. All right. Something like that. Let me see. I'm going to do the Let It Snow. I can't even tell if that's on straight. And I think I'm going to go right here. With that. And then we'll splatter paint and then fog in there like that. What does the crowns with the numbers after our names mean? Mine is number 1. I have no idea what that means. I can't see it here. I'm not seeing the comments here on YouTube. I'm only seeing it in the software that I use for my streaming, so I might be viewing something differently from what you guys have. It's an artful application of those 3,000 dots that you guys sat through, Linda. All right. All right, Let It Snow. It seems like a weird spot for this piece right here, but remember, this is, if you just joined in, this is a pre-folded card, so this is what the card would look like that, and then someone opens it to this side, and then you get this like that. So again, it's like, I see it as like 3 compositions or something like that. Or, like I said, you can also have your greeting or whatever on the outside like this, and then they open up a card like this, and this big kind of a 2-page spread or something like that in there. And if it's on the inside like this, where this is their big spread like that, which would be kind of cool. It'd be kind of a dramatic kind of reveal. And then what you do is you put, your writing on the back of this. I would write it in, like white pigment ink or white acrylic paint pen, or a gel pen or whatever, your letter to someone. All right, let's see here. So there's these little rocks in here that are capturing some of that light in my water. Let's do a couple different variations here. Let's go with some lighter blue. It's not really in the tone of it, huh? This has a little bit of a reddish tinge, maybe a slight violet tinge. This is just more kind of a light blue, but we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like here. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But if you want to get like darker, kind of like little highlights that are in the same color scheme as the piece, if you have these sets of acrylic paint pens, you might as well, you can work other subtle tone into your highlights like that. Oh, the pine beetle. Yeah, yeah. So these bark beetles, had it's more when I was like hiking before. It's probably still the same thing, but with so much drought, those beetles had ravaged a lot of the forests in Southern California. People are thinking it's Southern California forest, but there's like some mountain ranges in like Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties that go up to, they're in the 10,000 feet range. So there's a lot of elevation changes in Southern Cal. And a lot of the forested areas that I used to go hiking at, especially during the summer times when the deserts are going to be just way too hot, I'd hike it starting at around 8,000 feet. And from about 6,000 to 7,000 feet, as you're driving up the hill, there was just so much damage with all these dead growth, And it was all those beetles like that, I was in the Sierras when it was October, I think it was. And it seemed like I don't know, maybe the Forest Service or something like that, or the counties up there, they were removing a lot of that dead wood proactively, just so that if there is a fire up there, it's not going to be, quite as bad, probably, by removing all of that dead wood and, I don't know, whatever built up mulch that were in between the trees. Which is good, really good to see. All right, so there's some of that blue in there. I don't know if you can see it at all, but there's a little bit of a tonal change within those dots. Okay, now that is really, really busy in there. But hopefully we'll get a little bit of unification, and then I'll add in my foggy little effects in here. This would be pretty good to add in like that torn paper towel, kind of cloudy look in the background. Hey, okay, let's do that here. I haven't done one of these in a while. I was thinking, I don't want to do that, but I do, I guess. So let's get a nice torn, a little bit more of a loopy type of silhouette here. I'll try to add this in really fast here. Okay, I think that'll be a decent little cloud formation right there. This shouldn't take too long either because I only have a little bit of space to fill in here. And then plus it'll be a nice textural difference from all this kind of crawling little, light things that are going on here. All right. The more you post, the crown goes up in number. Someone try to get like 10,000 crowns. You know what I haven't seen in one of these live streams in a while? Is one of those, it's either a bot or someone coming on and just spamming the message board or something like that, knock on wood, but I haven't seen that for a while. Now this is, my live streams aren't, there's not a million people in them or something like that, but even kind of in the early days of kind of doing that, we get someone on occasionally like that, right? They do get controlled burns there once in a while, huh? Hello, Megan, how are you? All right, so getting my white pigment ink ready to go here. Yeah, let's leave that open. And then let's add in some cloud textures right in here. We'll go like this, like a little slopey thing like that. And then we'll adjust accordingly. Okay. When you're doing this type of thing, don't be afraid to move your cloud template, in this case a paper towel, around. See, it's like the same type of idea. We're adding a little bit more in one area, then we're transitioning it, okay? So what you do is I'm tapping this like halfway on the paper towel whenever I ink this up. And then as it gets drier on here, you're adding tone like in this lower portion of it so that it transitions from lighter to darker down here. And that's what's happening with, with our dots too. All right, let's see right here. You can get it. Sometimes it looks too much like a torn paper towel. So you kind of move this around a little bit, okay? As you're applying it, just so that it isn't so, it doesn't have like such a definitive edge to it. It's a little bit softer, okay? And that's what I kind of want. And then you can come down here and you can add in another, like where another volume of that cloud is forming, because these are kind of like, they're three-dimensional. Ooh, that's too much ink. They're three-dimensional like that. So you add that in like so. Like that. See, there's like too much right there, so I'm just gonna wipe it off like that. And it comes right off, somewhat. I can't remove it all because this is a piece of matte paper, so. All right, let's see, let's go like this. See how I keep moving this ripped towel like that? So it's kind of like that, just like a loose guide in some ways. I mean, sometimes you might be going for a really much more of a definitive edge, but I just kind of keep it moving a little bit. And then even when you, after you apply it too, something you come in here and you go above that edge there, kind of with a little bit of a drier application. So you get that transitioning kind of mist coming off of the cloud form. And I think it looks a little bit more natural and kind of a little bit more graceful, maybe. You're at !00XP. Yeah, the best thing about these paper towels too, right, is that, everyone has this cloud template material at home, at least. I do like the look of those kind of harder edge, plastic cloud templates. They're certainly stylized with the real loopy, archy, looks like that. It's really a super stylized one, but you know, not everyone has them, and everyone has a paper towel or napkin or something like that they can do. Um, and you never get the same, I don't know, clouds twice. I don't know, maybe that's good or bad. Sometimes it's like, oh, hey, I wish I can get that same cloud that I got on that one, but then start ripping those paper towels and tearing them, and you're just not getting that same tear again. I've joked around in the past. I've said, okay, um, if anyone wants to kind of learn how to do this, well, there will be we'll be teaching a paper towel tearing. We'll have a paper towel tearing cloud template seminar here. But okay, so that being said, though, actually, there is something kind of to these paper towels. Like, see, I can tear this in a certain direction, but there's a certain way that you tear a paper towel. There is a grain to it, and sometimes it tears just really straight, and sometimes you're tearing against the grain where you get more of that amorphic type of tear. It doesn't tear in a straight line. I like doing it where it's not tearing at a straight line. So I don't know, you gotta do a couple tears in it, and see which way the grain might be running within those whatever brand it is, or those fibers like that. And then I never get in one tear, so I just kind of, I do this type of thing. I just do little, you know, custom little tears like that to get it a little bit more loopy like that, if I want that type of look in a cloud. The biggest thing for me too is just don't have so much ink on your thing. Like I did over there, there's like a big blob of white. It's easy to get kind of, like I start going like that. It's like hardly anything's showing up. So I tab in here like thicker, and then sometimes I go in here and I'm applying more pressure, and you get a little bit of a blob. Like I said, you can kind of move it around a little bit, but it's just always easier just to apply it kind of a little bit more methodically. You can go like that too. See, these clouds are coming from, they're being top lit too, but it's kind of fun to do a little bit of like a bottom lit cloud too. So you can come in here like this. Okay, and I'll put another, let's do it this way. Yeah, like that maybe. And you can do a bottom lit cloud in here as well. You can go over your, if you have a sun or a moon, you can do it like this. Okay, so this one is going to be lit a little bit more on the lower portion and transition darker in the higher portion, where underneath the light source it was the opposite. Oh, there's my blob right there. Okay. Let's even that out there. Yeah, I want a little bit more hill fine tuning right here. This is like right up against this moon, so I'll give it a little bit of a lighter little edge right in here, like about like so. If you have like really long fingernails, as you're going down like that, sometimes you start getting these little archy half moon types of things in there. It's because your nail's kind of going in there. So just, you know, instead of like that, just adjust your finger where it's going out, you know, a little bit flatter like that. Okay, I was going to do the splatter painting before I did my little foggy effect down here, but since I'm using this anyways right now, let's just apply it right now. I think I'm going to use a little bit more of a narrow applicator, so I'm just kind of squeezing that off a little bit more. And let's see. I still haven't decided if that's it with my acrylic paint pen, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm going in front. Ooh, that's too much ink right there. I'm going to put it in front of some of these trees like this. I got an uneven application of ink here, so we can kind of blend that out a little bit. It's like using a keyboard. We were talking about that. You have to kind of get, you know, you got muscle memory, so it's going to be a little bit different on every little piece of whatever cotton ball that you're using. So kind of get really familiar with where the ink is on your applicator right there. But see that right there, that's kind of that nice lighting in there like that. That's where it kind of starts to, if you just kind of joined in, I was mentioning sometimes when you're doing this type of process, it's in that last step or something like that, literally. Well, this one I'm going to splatter paint in here too, I think. But this is kind of where it's really kind of, I don't know, the piece is kind of coming into focus in terms of some sort of element that's really bringing the piece together. And I think that this is right here, where it looked a little bit awkward, you know, especially with the that first application of the pastel pencil. It was like on such a contrasting mark on a dark piece of paper, you know. So you bring in more of that lighting and texture and contrasting applications of it. So it's light. So we added crisp applications in here. Now we're going back with, you know, softer applications of light. And it's where it's kind of, I don't know, it's bringing it together. I guess the pastel pencil was kind of it's a rough application of this soft texture in here, where this is like just, you know, a real fine, soft texture. And light too. And of course, this is, I'm able to add in a lot of this like this because there's already a lot of lightness in here. So this application of this white doesn't really stand out kind of awkwardly looking as a lone texture against a dark piece of paper, which a lot of the first applications of light on dark look like. Okay, now see, I'm coming like across in here too, and that's kind of illuminating this otherwise just all dark area that underneath that eave right in there. So there, right here on this cabin, this background cabin in here, if I add in a little bit of lighting, like back in there, it kind of, I don't know, I think it changes the spirit of this cabin in the back a little bit. You know, I don't want to, you know, make it look ominous or something like this. So you get this kind of this lighting, soft, mellow lighting in the piece. Hello, Linda D. We had a beautiful Christmas this year with just one person missing due to overseas health treatment. Hope all's well with that person then. Yeah, the same to you in 2026 for sure. Oops, a little bit too much ink there. I'm going to put that little figure in a little bit of a fog as well. Like that. Our little sledder going out and sledding all day or all night. They went out after dinner and came back at, I don't know, whatever, 8, 9 p.m. maybe in the winter. All right, let's see here. That, it's still a little bit busy for me in here. Let me add a little bit more of this. Like that. So you're just kind of decreasing, all the little dots are down there, but you're decreasing the contrast between all those little dots and the background value in there. So it just kind of tones them down just a touch. And all right, so that is pretty busy in there already, but I think that, I mean, I really like doing this splatter painted application of some additional snowfall in here. And plus I have to let it snow. I guess, I don't know, there's snow on the ground here, but if we want it like actively snowing in here, we can add a little bit more texture in here. So if anyone's just joined in, this is a pre-folded card like that. So we have the front of the card, the back of the card like that, and then it opens up like that. Or if you want to make this the interior of the card, you'd have whatever, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, or something like that. And then they would open it up to this. Yeah, it's pretty dramatic too. I don't know which way I like better. All right. Some Dr. Martens. Dr. Martens Bleed Proof White. It's an opaque white watercolor paint. Old toothbrush. It's hard to find these old toothbrushes without those rubber gum stimulators within the bristles. All right, don't splatter paint directly over the top of this because you might get a drip down, but I kind of squeeze a lot of that excess paint out of my brush, okay, like this. So I have very little in here. And you kind of add water to this till it's got the right consistency. You don't want it too thick, okay? So I'm going like this, and I'm tilting this up like this, and then, I don't know, you have to just kind of see which way your paint is splattering. So I don't know, sometimes it splatters in a direction that you didn't think it would be splattering in. Okay, I don't want to get too much around my words there. All right, that's enough there. The tendency for splatter painting is you know, I overdo it a lot of times because it's fun and you're going back to like being like a 5-year-old kid. But anyways, there's that extra texturing in there like that. I totally forgot about this blue colored pencil. I wonder if that, it's a little bit late to be doing this in here. You'd want to add this before, but you can get a little bit of extra tones in here too with like a lighter blue colored pencil. Like that looks pretty good in here. I should have added that in there, but see that little tone right down in that water like that? I would have added a little bit more in these shadow areas and transitioned a little bit more of that color like that, but yeah. Or I don't know, like in some of these areas right in here, if you want to get a little bit of a, okay, my paint's still a little bit wet, so it's dragging right here, so I don't want to do this too much here. So I'll go like that. And to my eye here, it's a little bit busy here. We started out everything with black ink impressions on here. Let me do this right here. Okay, so I'm using some of that same black ink. Let's see. On my cotton ball. I do this because it smashes this cotton ball down where it's nice and flat and not fuzzy. And we'll go in and I'll add in a little bit of extra framing, vignetting right here. See this darker tone right here? And let's do that in the 4 corners. It's a little bit open to me right now. Now I have the cloud right here, so I don't want to add too much of this, but I'll add a little bit of it. It'll darken up some of that cloud. I just thought it could use a little bit more framing in here because it's busy in here. So again, for a little bit more, now here's this darker area in here, so you can come into that area a little bit more with some of this black ink right here. You're not really applying black, but you're applying kind of like a gray tone in here. But that's what it looks like. You can see the difference between like this side and over here, okay? We have this tree here, so I'll use quite a bit of it in the lower section, like that. With this open area right here, open dark blue paper, so go like that. And we'll do just a touch right here because I have that white cloud right there again, just like over here. And let's see if I get a little smear of this up here. Yeah, okay. Something like that. I need to be careful around those word forms. And looks like that. It's a little bit more framed off, I think. Let it snow. You can almost put another word stamp back there if you wanted to. And then the 2-page spread. Although that looks pretty cool to open it up that way too. I don't know. Front of the card, one scene, back of the card, and open like that. And then you can put all your greetings in here, maybe. You know, I got all my splatter painting in here. That can kind of come off though. That Dr. Martin's really comes off easily. It won't wipe off this, but you know, a little bit of a coaxing, and you can probably just take an eraser and it'll come right off the inside if you need be. Or you just splatter paint this whole thing and have some additional, you know, snowfall in there with your writing and greeting in here. That would look kind of cool in terms of a little bit of a textural continuity between the inside and outside of the card. A little bit busy on here, maybe. I could use a little bit more toning in here, but I think, I don't know, pretty fun in terms of a technique in here. And again, this is kind of extreme, but light, sharp, I guess the splatter paint is sharp too. Different forms of lightness in here. So these are kind of the soft applications of lightness. And then the crisp applications of lightness would come in the form of these two types of tools right here. And again, you can use the like the blue one too, or something like that. Oh, so the black colored pencils. So just kind of variations of white for the most part. And then I do have the shading in here with the black. So yeah, pretty fun to do and highly recommended as an exercise. And like I said, this one's kind of extreme because I had so much open area in there. If I were to do this again, I would use some like heavier objects in here so that I wouldn't have to do so much lighting work in big open spaces like that. But again, you know, if you have open spaces like this, I would divide it up like this. So you have these like different mounds in here as opposed to like big open spaces of just like flat, you know, in this case, snow. You know, have bigger trees in here or something like that. So you have like 25% of that work to do. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Happy New Year to all of you as well. Let's see. I'm reading through here. Oh, son's wife returning to us in early Jan. Oh, glad the surgery went well. As I always say to people that have undergone procedures, I hope they have a nice, boring kind of recovery, uneventful and, you know, with no undesirable surprises. Yeah. Let's see. Glad you like it, Megan. Is 38 Celsius about 100? Yeah, what is 38 Celsius there? I don't know. I'll have to do the calculations here. All right, folks. Thanks for checking out the, what do we call this? Front and back card scenario in dark blue. I don't know why I've always done a lot of these double card scenarios in dark blue. I don't think I've done a lot in white. It's because I have that pack of dark blue paper that I bought, cardstock, wherever it went, like that. So you can do them in any size. And like I said, if you want to do them, sometimes it's, you know, it's easier just to do it on a flat piece of paper. That way you're not dealing with this little seam down here. But having that seam in there, when you can kind of check on how each separate, you know, scene is looking, it's easier to fold it like that and to get the gist of it so you can get the compositions the way you want on the front and back side really easily. It's, you know, you can pre-fold or something like that. So anyway, thanks again for joining in. Hope to see you in the next live stream. And if you have any questions about this entire light on dark process, if you're playing around with it, and if you've run into any kind of whatever undesirable types of applications of something, take a photograph of it and drop me an email. Oftentimes, like I said, for me, it comes together kind of in some of the last couple steps in the process where it kind of looks a little bit harsh. Now, if it's a lighter toned background, this one's a pretty dark one like this. It's not stamping white on black or something like that, but it's really dark in terms of a foundational type of color scheme. So any type of white application on there is really going to stand out. So it really stands out early in those stages. But you have to keep building it on, all these little types of things like that, and it tends to come together. I should add a little bit more white pigmenting to this one, which I might a little bit later, and to just tone down some of the sheer amount of these little dots in there that are a little bit crazy for me right now. Or I might add some blue colored pencil and just tone some of these dots into, instead of a white dot, it's a little bit of dark, a bluish dot too. So yeah, I'll play around with that and I'll post it on Facebook and my Flickr page. Anyway, fine tuning here. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of evening. L.A. Hodgkins. Happy Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you in Maine there. Bye, everyone.